Hi, it's Ian from the Postal Hub Podcast.
And Marek from Last Mile Experts.
And we are the Last Mile Prophets. This is the last word on the last mile. Marek, news from India just recently that Google has participated in some fundraising for a local delivery startup, and quite a bit of interest in this when you posted it on LinkedIn. So we thought we might delve into it a little bit more depth. Marek, anybody who's been to our workshops over the last couple of years know that we've been talking about Google getting into the last mile. And while Google has had an abortive attempt, shall we say, previously at getting into the last mile, is what we're seeing here sort of the beginning of Google dipping its toe in the water in a land where Amazon might not be so dominant?
Yeah, I think, as you mentioned, we've been saying for a long, long time that it's on the cards. Google is one of the obvious candidates to leverage its technical competence in the last mile. And as you said, there was something called Google Express around about 2013, if I remember correctly, which I think finally was amalgamated with Google Shopping. And in the end, it didn't really cut that much ice.
Well, yeah, and the idea behind Google Express, if I recall correctly, was it was delivering locally in a few geographies in the USA. It started off sort of super fast deliveries, started doing some overnight or next day deliveries, but it never really took off. So let's just quickly go back to this thing here with, we should actually tell people what we're talking about. We're talking about this investment by Google in, we don't know if it's called Dunzo or Dunzo.
I'd go for Dunzo, but I may be wrong.
We're going to say Dunzo today, everybody, but if you reckon we're getting it wrong, comment below. Tell us how you actually pronounce it. This is that it's participating in a $40 million investment round in hyperlocal delivery startup Dunzo, a Bangalore-based firm, which it's also previously backed. Now, this startup's been around for 5 years and no real idea about whether or not it's profitable. But
does that matter, Ian, at the moment? What matters is the growth trend.
So India is a really interesting e-commerce market because e-commerce is such a small penetration. I think it's 3% or something like that.
Yeah, but of an awfully large number of people.
3% of 1 billion is still a big number.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it is a big number. And the idea of this hyperlocal delivery is that people can access a whole range of different products. They can order everything from groceries, food delivery, perishables, hardware, bits and pieces like that. If we look at the Indian market, I mentioned Amazon at the outset, Marek. How's Amazon going in India?
I think they're doing pretty well. They've adapted the model, I remember even when I was around, to match the local needs. There was a bit of a challenge, as you might remember, when, was it Walmart that bought Flipkart?
Yeah.
So it put a bit of a spanner in the works there. But what I think is interesting about India is there's a massive number of small and medium-sized enterprises there. And I think Google's concept works pretty well there. And if I've understood correctly, Dunzo would fit in. So if I were in their shoes, it's a pretty good place to kick off because in America, one of the reasons I reckon they failed with Google Express is the fact that all the big players started doing it on their own. So Walmart set up their own delivery, Target set up their own delivery, etc., etc. Whereas in India, I think there's a chance that they get a piece of the action at entry level when things haven't developed yet. And probably it's a further attempt at putting their foot in the door when it comes to last mile.
And that's an interesting point about being able to bring together all these small businesses, Americans call mom and pop operations, the husband and wife kind of operations that run a local store or a local small business. So for them, being able to plug in to a platform might be an advantage. It means that they're able to sort of access not just online selling, but a super fast delivery as a result. We might just mention at this point, Marek, that Yandex, again, don't know if that's exactly how you pronounce it, the Google equivalent, shall we say, in Russia, they've been doing something along these lines for the last year or two, haven't they?
Absolutely. So it's not a new thing for players with this competence to look at the last mile. My feeling is that Google are too smart to let it go. They can see what's happening now. This is too big a cake. And what we've got to I believe, bear in mind, is that if you're interested in e-commerce, which I believe everybody is interested in now post-COVID, you cannot not be interested in the last mile, because one of the things that has become clear now is the last mile is no longer some kind of ancillary service. Actually, it's pretty much e-commerce. What is the difference between bricks and mortar retail and e-commerce? It's the last mile. So I think watch this space. There are going to be more players like Google who are going to be interested. The question is, can they make this work? Will they get the right learnings? Will they leverage it? Because India's all very interesting, but the place where it's really happening at the moment is Europe. If you look at the IPOs that have recently been happening in Poland and in Holland, it's the place to be right now.
One of the things I have a vague recollection about, Marek, is that there's been some regulatory issues with companies like Amazon entering the Indian market. And maybe somebody can comment below and share with us sort of what the intricacies of those things were. But do you have any other comments, Marek, about sort of the importance of the Indian market or the learnings that a player like Google might have from India?
You know, to be honest, I think I've shared why I think India's there. But what I did want to talk about, Ian, is why Google is so well placed to leverage this particular space. And in my view, their incredible tech knowledge and the data that they hold on the consumer must mean that they're going to have a huge advantage over other carriers or other carrier support providers, because they can really tailor whatever they're offering. Point one. Point two, people, we know this, don't like too many apps. Almost everyone's got Google. I can't not have Google on my Android phone.
Exactly.
So given that, it's very easy for me to have services which are powered by Google. And what I can imagine, I've been saying this for a while, I think it's beginning to happen, but instead of tracking 5 or 6 different carriers in different apps, you'd have a Google app that does that. And I think that's going to be part of their approach in this space. And this tactical move is about understanding better. I'm sure they'll leverage that. But I'm going to make a prediction. And my prediction will be within the next 5 years, Google is going to be there when we talk about top players in the last mile. At the moment, we'd, of course, talk about the integrators. We'd talk about, I'm really bad at pronouncing Kainio, Amazon, and Google's going to be there.
Well, I just wanted to mention really quickly about Google is that for a lot of these other companies that we talk about, they will operate their own delivery network. So JD.com has its own delivery network. Amazon has its own delivery network. With Google's all about technology. They even have drones, and they're interested in autonomous driving and all of that, autonomous vehicles and things like that. So where would they be heading with this? They probably wouldn't want to run their own delivery fleet. But like you said, if they provide a platform that others can easily plug into, if you're a delivery company, you can plug into it and you pay Google a fee every time you do a delivery or whatever it might be, right? I'm talking very simplistic terms here. But Google's not, or Alphabet, I suppose, as the parent company, is probably not that interested in employing human beings with blood coursing through their veins to do things. They're more interested in the technology side of things. What's your take on that, Marek?
If you think about it, Amazon doesn't actually employ so many people on the last mile, because unless things have changed dramatically since I was there, it's all outsourced.
Oh, okay. So it's outsourced, but what I'm getting at here is that it's still under an Amazon brand. I mean, if you look at what's happening in the USA, those drivers are driving around in Amazon branded vehicles. So,
well, you know what? I actually reckon there's going to be a bit of a hybrid, because with Amazon, it's the same. A significant part of Amazon volumes anyway, as you know, are shipped by independent carriers, the integrators, the local post, etc. So my feeling, I'm not sure, because it could go in various directions, but I would imagine you're going to get a hybrid where we're going to have something like Google Express or Google Shopping or whatever they finally decide.
Plenty to watch what's happening over in India and what it might mean for the rest of the world with regard to Google's intentions in e-commerce and the last mile. Marek, we've got to wrap it up. We've run out of time, but share your comments below. Marek Różycki, thanks for joining us on Last Mile Profits.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you, everyone.